What does winning look like? We know what the long-term goal is.
What does a leader look like? When you think about a leader, what do you picture in your mind?
What decision am I going to make in this moment to help me move in that direction?
If you're closest to the problem, you're probably in the best position to solve that.
We're the ones that are going to have to put the solutions in place and execute on them.
Are you a good teammate? Or are you putting the team and the mission first? Do you help others?
Topic for today, what does winning look like?
This is a fantastic question because you have to keep that in mind so you're thinking strategically about the long term. It's real easy to get sucked down into the details of a problem and focus on the immediate tactical problem, as we'd call it in the military, right? The short-term problems instead of thinking about long-term, what are you actually trying to do? And if you're not thinking about what winning looks like, then you're going to probably not make the right short-term moves to get you, toward that long-term strategic victory. And this is a question that really came out of our battlefield event. So we do an event called EF Battlefields for Echelon Front, our consulting company. And what this is based on, the military calls this a staff ride, where you go and visit these battlefields and you look at leaders and you look at the decisions that they made and the actions that they took and the relationships that they had. And we often go to the Gettysburg battlefield for our EF Battlefield event. And we've been there a number of times now. And there's so many powerful lessons that come out of that. It's a small group of leaders. There's only 30, 35 people that come to that. And we really had to look at that problem. We were up there. It was one of the third or fourth trip that we took to Gettysburg. And that was something that we were asking the leaders that are there, right? What does winning look like in this situation? We're talking about from the Army of Northern Virginia, the Confederate Army there under General Lee at Gettysburg. What did winning look like to them? And after the first day of the battle, where are they at? What did winning look like on the Union side? The Army of the Potomac under General Meade, for the Union Army, what their position was and what does winning look like for them? What did things look like on the first day of the battle? And we all know the outcome of the battle now, but you don't know the outcome of the battle then. No one at the battle certainly knew that at the time. And so I think it's a great question to ask yourself. And you could apply this in any context. So if you and I are actually about to have a conversation, let's say that we've had some disagreement. Let's say that we've had some misalignment and we need to get aligned on some things. If I recognize that before I even approach you to actually have this conversation, I need to be thinking about what does winning look like? In my mind, and what does winning look like? It means that we get aligned. We actually, we put egos aside. We get through whatever clash and frictions that we've had so that we can move forward together in a positive direction as a team to accomplish our goal. And if I understand that's what winning looks like, then even if you come at me hard and, with a personal attack, or even if I see that your ego is getting involved, I can de-escalate. I can set my ego aside, not allow myself to get reeled into that, and move us forward in a positive direction so that we can work together. If I don't do that, if I'm not thinking about what winning looks like, I can get sucked into that problem. It could be a clash of egos. I let my ego get involved. You come at me hard. I get defensive. And now we can leave that meeting and we might have a worse situation that develops because I lost sight of what winning looked like.
In those situations, we either win the argument or we win the relationship. And the question of what does winning look like actually helps us determine what do we want out of this. Do we want to win the argument? That's a short-term tactical win that doesn't help us with a long-term goal. Or do we want to win the relationship? Meaning, I don't have to be right. I don't have to win this argument. I can set my ego aside for the sake of us building a relationship and moving forward towards the bigger goal that we're trying to accomplish together.
I mean, here's one example that people are probably all familiar with, right? If your flight got delayed and you're at the airport, how many times have you seen one go up to the counter and just chew out the poor airline, personnel that's standing there at the counter? It's not their fault, right? That there's some mechanical issue or there's no crew available or whatever. And what does that person really want? Certainly that person's frustrated, right? They're trying to get home. So what they need to do, they want that person to help them. The worst way that you can get someone to help you is to insult someone, raise your voice at them, get angry with them, accuse them of all kinds of terrible things. So it's actually taking you in the opposite direction of where you want to go. And look, it's easy for us to get frustrated in a situation like that, particularly if we felt like we were mistreated or the airline did something, poor. I get all those things. And I've certainly been frustrated with the amount that we travel, for Echelon Front. But you have to think about what winning looks like. And when you can take a step back, take a breath, calm yourself down, detach from the situation, focus on what winning looks like. You realize, okay, let me build a relationship with this person to try to get them to help me so that I can accomplish the mission and we can be successful.
Yeah, this question for me is twofold. There's the strategic viewpoint. So as a team or even within yourself or within your family, asking that question, what does winning look like, helps you determine what is the mission so that you can get the people around you aligned towards that mission. And then once you've determined, hey, this is what winning looks like for our family. This is what winning looks like for our team, for our company. Then you have to use that same question tactically. And that's what we're talking about now. In those moments when friction arises or problems arise, or we have to try to solve for something, asking that question again, what does winning look like? We know what the long-term goal is. We know what winning looks like in 10, 15, 20 years when this is all said and done. What decision am I going to make in this moment to help me move in that direction? What does winning look like in this small interaction?
We've seen this with a number of leaders as well, right? That like they're really frustrated with something that's going on at work. They want to go in and just tell it like it is to their boss, right? Or their senior leader, maybe their boss's boss. And that might feel good at the time. But then the question is, okay, what does winning look like? What do you want to accomplish by doing that? If what you want to accomplish is getting fired, that's probably a real easy way to do that, right? Is if what you want to accomplish is, walking off the job, not having any good recommendations, for a future job opportunity, that's probably what you're going to accomplish for something like that. Now, obviously, there's scenarios where you may need to raise some red flags, right? If something illegal or immoral or unethical is going on, obviously I'm not talking about those kind of situations, but you've got some frictions, you got some frustrations. Be careful how you express those, because you got to keep in mind what winning looks like. And sometimes it's a reminder that even being right, if you and I are in an argument and I said, hey, Jamie, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because I think that might be a problem. The worst thing is that even if you did that, like, you already know that I'm right. I don't need to go in and say that I'm right. So being right is an expenditure of leadership capital. And if my goal, if what winning looks like is to build a better relationship with you, if I go in and say, hey, Jamie, I told you so, you didn't listen to me, I'm just hemorrhaging leadership capital very unwisely, I might add. That does not make you like me more, build a relationship more so that we can work together and be more effective in what we're trying to do to accomplish the mission. So think about that. Even being right, it might feel good to say that. Don't go say, I told you so. That's not going to help you. It's not going to help you win.
It's certainly not going to help you win. And what I love about this question is it helps us determine the mission. So at Echelon Front, when we talk about what does winning look like, that helps us determine that winning for us at Echelon Front was impact, driving an impact. And there's some other components to our mission, but that was a simplified version that we felt like, hey, we can get everyone rallied around the idea that winning at Echelon Front means we're driving an impact in the lives of the people that we serve and we get to work with. That piece of it has allowed our team, because we're aligned around that, to make decisions at their level to help drive towards the bigger mission. So when a book gets sent from our store and the cover is torn or whatever it might be, Heather, who runs our merchandise, can very quickly determine what does winning look like in this situation. I want to drive an impact. I want to leave a lasting impression. I'm going to solve this problem at my level and send them a new book, and I'm going to throw in a patch and maybe a mug and take care of them, and I'm not going to charge them anything. She could do that at her level in something in merchandise, and every person on our team feels empowered to do that. We can offer our clients upgraded services, send things when we screw things up. They have power within their sphere of responsibility to solve that problem, knowing that winning for us is driving an impact, and we can do that in every little interaction, not just on site with clients, but in every little interaction with those individuals.
I think one of the real traps that people fall into here is that they're focused on, they're focused on themselves. Right? We all get focused on ourselves. We think about ourselves. And so our measure of success often becomes, how much am I earning? How much work am I doing? Am I carrying the rest of the team, around me? Am I someone that everybody looks to and depends on I'm the person that's got to get this done. I've got to do it. It's all on my shoulders. That feels good to your ego. And when that becomes your measure of success, then you really lose track of what winning long-term actually should look like, which is somebody that people want to work with, somebody that people want to work alongside, that's not just about themselves. And I think, it's easy to hoard resources and, hey, for me and my little small team, I want to get everything I can for them. I want to get all the resources for me. But if you're taking those resources away from other people, well, that's a major problem. And that's not who you want to be. That's actually impacting the overall team. This is a lesson I learned in the SEAL teams, because when I first joined the SEAL teams, the war had just kicked off, in Afghanistan, and quickly it shifted to Iraq. And so this was some of the first real combat operations that SEALs had experienced really since the Vietnam War. And all of a sudden now, this is, we're getting a lot of lessons learned from the battlefield. And so the people that put me through training initially, many of them didn't have real combat experience. And so we were going out on patrols in the desert, go out to our desert warfare training facility in Southern California. And the popular thinking was, if you see people in the tree line 200 yards away, maybe you can't even tell if they have weapons or not, but they might be bad, you should call troops in contact. What that means is now I'm going to get aircraft overhead. I've got aircraft that are directly supporting me. And in their minds, that makes total sense, right? I can get those aircraft right overhead. Now I've got either maybe I got Apache gunships, helicopters, or I've got a fixed wing F-18 aircraft, fighter aircraft that can drop bombs or do gun runs in support of me. All this is great. So why not have that? I've got my little 16 or 18 man SEAL platoon out there on patrol, and there might be some bad guys. So now we got aircraft overhead. That's awesome. Makes a lot of sense if it's just you on the battlefield.
Yep.
But guess what? When I went forward in my first combat deployments were to Iraq, I realized it's not just you on the battlefield. There's tens of thousands of troops on the battlefield. And in all of Anbar province, which was the largest province in Iraq, they had 2 fixed-wing aircraft for emergency close air support. So if you were calling troops in contact, what that meant was you're taking those aircraft and you're pulling them off from every other unit. There might be 50,000 troops in Anbar province at the height of the war. You're taking them away from Marines or soldiers that might be pinned down, and guys are bleeding out and they might die or get overrun. And you're just calling them because you might need them. That's a terrible thing. And so we realized you can't do that. You got to think about, it's not about you, it's about the overall team and the overall mission. And so that was a big recognition that we tried to impart to the next generation of SEALs as Jocko and I came back and started running training, is you got to think about everybody, not just you. So what winning looks like is the overall team and helping the overall team. And if you're hoarding resources for yourself or your own gain, everyone can see that, and that's not who you want to be.
And you can see this play out in little small examples too, like tying your kid's shoe. Think about that in this question of, you've got a combat example. Now I'm talking about this same question applies with tying your kid's shoe. What does winning look like? I want my kids to be capable. If I tie my kid's shoe every time they walk out the door because it's easier and faster, I'm not creating capable children who can learn to do that for themselves. The same thing.
Just for the record, I've been in a lot of combat. I think tying kids' shoes might be harder.
I agree.
In some ways, in many ways.
And the same thing, I've learned this with tying kids' shoes, something simple where, hey, I've got to, winning looks like my kid being able to do this on their own. That has been something as my kids have gotten older that I have to constantly remind myself of. They'll come home and they've got a situation they need to engage with a teacher on. My instinct as a mom is to step in and try to solve that, to call the teacher, to email the teacher, to try to get this situated. But I have to ask myself that question all the time. What does winning look like? If I step in and solve this for my kid is not going to learn how to communicate with an adult, how to advocate for themselves, and how to solve problems or take ownership. These are opportunities for them to practice these principles that I know will help them in their life as they get older. That's what I want for my family. That's what winning looks like for my kids and for us as a family unit. So I have to ask that question and remember to pull back a little bit, to encourage them, to role play with them, to put them in a scenario to solve those problems for themselves. Those little things are really critical. So this question can be the big questions in combat situations or in the small everyday interactions we're having at home with our kids. What does winning look like? What do we really want to accomplish? And are we doing the tactical things to lead us in that direction?
I think that's a fantastic point, because what winning doesn't look like, right, is teaching your kids that you're going to solve all their problems for them. You've got to actually teach them to solve the problems themselves, whether it's tying their shoe or whatever they're dealing with in life. And it's the same thing at work. It's the same thing at work. We see this all the time where it feels good for a leader who to solve people's problems. You know, if you work for me and I'm the boss and you come to me and you say, hey, Leif, here's the situation. Here's what's going on. What should we do about that? Well, it feels good to my ego to be like, oh, I'm the one that has to solve this problem. Okay, Jamie, let's do this, this, and this. And you're like, okay, make it happen. That feels good to me. But now I have been what we call the easy button. At Echelon Front, we call this the easy button. That means that now every time you have a problem, you're going to come to me to get that problem solved. And a lot of people think that's what doing a good job is. As a boss, you might feel like, or as a team leader, I solve people's problems. It's what I do. It feels good to me. But that's a missed opportunity, because what winning actually looks like is teaching you to solve that problem and then just letting me know how you solved it. That's what winning looks like. Otherwise, I have to solve your problem and everyone else's problem all the time, which means that we can't grow, we can never scale, we can never actually implement decentralized command. I don't have a bunch of thinking people. They're just waiting for one person, me, to solve all the problems. And while that might feel good, it's a terrible way to operate. We can't grow, we can't be successful. So what I should do is when you come to me and say, hey, Leif, here's what's going on, what should we do? I should say, hey, Jimmy, what do you think we should do? And then you can either tell me a plan that makes sense, and I say, hey, that's great, go do it, and encourage you and give you some confidence to actually execute and solve those problems. Or you might come up with something that's totally off the wall that doesn't make a lot of sense. Then I could actually use that as a training opportunity to explain, maybe, you know what, I appreciate your initiative there. We might do this instead. Here's why I might think about doing it this way. Now that's a training opportunity for you to go solve that problem. And eventually we can work to a place which is, as you and I have done, over the years, where now instead of you coming and asking me what to do, you tell me what's going on. Hey, here's what we did to solve this problem. We made it happen.
I am absolutely the beneficiary of that question. Hey, what do you think we should do? Both you and Jocko, from day one, 11 years ago, when I would come to you with a problem, and back then I was coming to you all the time with little things that came up because I didn't know how to solve them. And I would ask that question, hey, what should I do here? Here's the situation I'm dealing with. And you both would respond with, what do you think we should do? And I remember initially feeling frustrated because I thought, well, I'm calling you. Obviously, I don't know what to do because I'm calling you for this. But I realize now what you were doing was helping me to build confidence and making those decisions for myself, because you knew what winning looked like was me being capable of solving these problems at my level and helping me to build in that confidence. So I would give an offer of a suggestion, and 98% of the time you both would say, cool, execute, and give me that confidence that, okay, I figured this out. Even if you might have had a better idea, you let me run with it because it was my plan. That was part of this question of what does winning look like at Echelon Front? And over time, what that did for me is, instead of coming to you with problems, I came to you with, hey, here's the problem. Here's something I think we should do. Here's a potential solution. And now what we've transpired into is, hey, here's the problem. Here's what I did to solve it. I'm just giving you a heads up. And now I get to impart that on my team, because what winning looks like on my team is that we implement decentralized command, and the people that are coming up with us building what we're building here are a part of that mission, and they can feel confident and capable of stepping in and solving those problems at their level. And so I'm using that same tactic now. Hey, what do you think we should do? It's a great way to get people to build up with you to move towards the long-term mission.
And what you just said is not a small point, because even if it's above your pay grade to make a decision or, dedicate some resource, to this particular problem, even just if you're closest to the problem, you're probably in the best position to solve that problem. So at least making a recommendation of the chain of command, so you're giving your chain of command options, is what you actually want. That's what winning looks like long term. And I think that takes us to, this idea that we talk about at Echelon Front, which is the silent leader, versus the traditional leader. And if you think about what does a leader look like? When you think about a leader, what do you picture in your mind? Most of us are going to picture what I would picture for most of my life until I learned otherwise. That person that stands up in front of the room, that barks orders at people, that tells people what to do, that says, you do this, you do this, you do this. That's what a leader looks like. That's what we picture when we see a leader. I always saw that in myself. That's what I wanted to be, as the combat leader that was directing people and telling people what to do. And it wasn't really until I started working with Jocko and Tasking a Bruiser where I got to really see when I would say, hey, boss, what do you think about doing it this way? And he'd say, why don't you run with that? Letting me run with stuff. And he'd go out in operations as the ground force commander and not say anything over the radio. He was letting us all step up and run the missions. That's what we call the silent leader. Somebody who is trained their team, empowered their team to step up, lead. The team knows what the purpose, the goal, the end state is they're trying to achieve. That's what we call commander's intent in the military. They also know the parameters inside of which they can make decisions, outside of which they can't make decisions. And if you have empowered your team, if you've trained your team, then you as a leader don't have to say anything. And that's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate what winning looks like. And no matter, I had pictured myself as a kid playing with my G.I. Joe figures in the sandbox as being one of those combat leaders that barked orders at people and told people what to do. And there's certainly times on the battlefield where I had to make calls or say, hey, take that building over there, or hey, we're going to pull back. But the times that I'm most proud of, for the gunfights that we got in during that 2006 deployment at the Battle of Ramadi, the times that I'm most proud of, I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to say anything because I had a team of people who understood what to do. I had great leaders at every level who were stepping up, who were leading. And that enabled me, I wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. Now I could think about the next step and the next step and the next step beyond that. I can think strategically because my team is handling the tactical problems and making stuff happen. And that is what winning looks like long-term, I think, for any leader on a team. And it's a trap that we fall into, that we think we need to make the calls. And what you really need to be doing is training people to make those calls so that you can be looking up and out for the long-term success of your team.
I love when Jocko is on stage at the muster and he says something to the crowd of like, you know what I did for this muster? Nothing. And there's a part of me that's like, I can verify that. But my point is like, that's true. I think people assume someone like Jocko, who's out in the public eye and talking all the time, that's what you guys do for a living. And yet, in our meetings, internal at Echelon Front, he rarely says anything. And that surprises a lot of people because obviously you, Jocko, have a ton of insight and experience to offer, but that with that question in mind, what does winning look like? That's not the answer. Him stepping in and giving us the answer doesn't allow our team to figure out how to do this on our own, how to step up and solve these problems at our level. And to your point, in that moment, wherever our perspective is so much more valuable because we're the ones that are going to have to put the solutions in place and execute on them. So I think that's a really good example of what does winning look like, not having to say anything in the meeting and letting your team come up with the ideas and then go and execute.
And that's a hard one, particularly when you care, particularly when you've been involved. I know both you and I struggle with that.
Hard for you and me.
For sure. And when I go into a meeting, I've this is because, I care so much about this company and the clients that we work with and the people that we get to influence, for good and help them solve problems with leadership. I know you feel the same way, and you've been here for 11 years now, and helped us grow this company to where we are today. And I have to write down as a contingency plan before I go into a meeting, don't talk, ask questions, listen.
You gave me the tactic of, hey, I want you to, every time you have to come off mute and say something, hit that timer. And then when you're done, hit it again and see in the course of an hour meeting, how much did you talk? And the goal should be to have that be as minimal as possible. Our colleague, Dave Burke at Echelon Front, will regularly just mute me when I come off mute to say something. He's like, nope, you don't need to say anything. It's his way, in a caring way, to help me focus on what does winning look like. The team needs to come up with this plan. And of course I have ideas. I love what we do at Echelon Front and I want to add value. It's with the best of intent. But it doesn't really matter if the team feels stifled or I potentially miss really good perspectives and ideas, because once you or I say something in a meeting, the team's running with it. And all of a sudden, the things they might have added get put to the side because they're focused on what we've asked them to do. So that's been for me the timer of like, every time I have to hit that timer, is this worth it? Is it worth me saying something? What does winning look like? Not saying anything at all and letting the team come up with the plan.
And there's times where it is worth it. There's times where the team seems to be getting off track, and are they wasting a bunch of time on something that you don't think is the priority, and you need to reshift them to the priority. So there's definitely times where you got to step in as a leader to do that. But I love that idea because it's one that I struggle with. And I think you could put some real quantifiable data on, okay, this was a 62-minute meeting. How much time was I actually speaking out of that? It's an easy percentage that you can calculate. If that percentage is 50% of the meeting with 12 or 15 people on it, that's way too much.
Well, just even the act of having to hit the timer is giving you that insight, that detached person. It's forcing you to remember, like, make this fast. Like, is this worth hitting that timer? Is what I have to say really worth it, or is it not that valuable? And to your point, periodically they need commander's intent, or we're off track, or we're not aligned on the mission, and coming off mute and expending a little bit of that time to get the team on track is worth it. But most of the time, what I have to say is not nearly as valuable as what they're contributing to the conversation.
It's making you really think deeply about what winning looks like. And I think it's a very small reminder, and I think it's a great exercise.
So where do people start in trying to define what winning looks like in their life?
The first thing you have to do is detach. If you're not detached, you're not going to be able to think strategically long-term about what winning looks like. So you get sucked into the problem, you get sucked down in the details, and you're focused on day to day, you're focused on week to week. You're not thinking about year to year, decade to decade, long-term. And that's what we're talking about, what winning looks like. What's interesting about Echelon Front, a consulting business, where we go in and help people solve problems through leadership, whether it's a huge corporation or a small startup or anywhere in between. And we work with educators and first responders and all kinds of different businesses and organizations. What's interesting about it is oftentimes when people come to our events, like our 2-day leadership conference, extreme ownership muster, or battlefield, or any other events that we run, they'll come to those events looking to better themselves and focus on their professional lives. And a lot of times what they realize is the most important leadership responsibility they have is on the home front. And they need to be better husbands and wives. They need to be better parents. They need better sons or daughters, brothers, sisters, friends, members of their community. And we see that over and over again because it's a chance for them to detach and think about what winning looks like long term. And I think people realize that, look, work is important. Work is important. But winning long term, those relationships that you have on the home front are even more important.
And I think this is important because 2 of our core beliefs at Echelon Front is leadership at every level and leadership in every capacity. So you just mentioned, hey, this leadership in every capacity, as we think about this question, it applies at home with our families, it applies in our professional world. But the other piece of that I think is important is that we're talking about leadership at every level too. So if you run a team, if you're in a traditional leadership position, yes, it's your job to define what winning looks like for your team. But if you're an individual contributor, you can absolutely ensure that you understand what the mission is. You get answers to the question of why are we doing this and what's the long-term goal. And then your question that you're going to define for yourself, what does winning look like, is focus on your role and what are you doing to contribute to that broader mission or to help the team get there in whatever capacity you're in at your level. So I think it's important to recognize this isn't just a concept for leaders at the top to push downward. This is absolutely something you can lead up the chain of command as well.
No question. And I think, from the work perspective too, don't just be that person that is, hey, I get it done. Someone gives me a task and I get it done. Are you a good teammate? Are you putting the team and the mission first? Do you help others? Do you go share resources? When you see someone who's struggling, do you actually go over there and help them and say, hey, what can I do to actually help this person? That's the kind of person that everybody wants to have as part of the team, right? These are the kind of teammates that people want that will help drive the organization to be successful. And so I think oftentimes people get reeled into that immediate tactical problem of I check the boxes, I get things done, I make things happen. But what winning looks like long-term is somebody that helps the team and the mission. And when you think about that, that is truly, I think, what winning looks like long-term.
So that is our immediate action drill for today. I want people to spend some time detached and think about what does winning look like at home with your family and within your organization, within your professional world. Define what winning looks like and then decide what are the tactical things I'm going to start focusing on to move me in the direction of accomplishing that.
And I think part of that is recognizing if once you detach and think about what winning looks like, if there are things that you're doing in the short term that are taking you away from that or impacting you being successful in what winning looks like in the long term, stop doing them and make some adjustments so that everything you're doing is leading to the long-term strategic victory. That's what winning looks like in the long run. And that's how you're going to lead and win.
Find us on YouTube or wherever you like to listen to podcasts and do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, subscribe, share, leave us a review, but most importantly, send us the leadership challenges that you're facing right now so we can target our next episodes to helping you understand how to apply the principles of extreme ownership to solving those challenges.
Check out our free resources at echelonfront.com, or you can take the next step and join the Extreme Ownership Academy, our online training platform, where we go deeper on these principles and teach you how to apply them in your business and in your life.